It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, today we're going to jump on that Sharp Interactive board. Toshiba Tec published their numbers for the third quarter ending FY 2023. I want to go through those numbers. Before we go through the numbers, I put together a slide that explains my thinking regarding Toshiba conglomerate. So without any further ado, let me show you that slide. There it is, folks. Here's what I'm thinking. The investment group, JIP Consortium, built this life raft for Toshiba. They even put Toshiba's name on the life raft. We're going to try to save you, Toshiba. And here's what Toshiba's saying. Does it come in a different color? Ladies and gentlemen, will you make the decision over there and get this deal done? Why in the world is this taking months and months and months? Bunch of leadership drama. It's just nuts. And when I think about the indecisiveness and inaction of the Toshiba conglomerate, I start thinking about some of the decisions they've actually made that turned out to be seem like nutty to me. They got rid of their laptop business. It's now Dynabook. You can see it here on my table, right? I think people are going to be buying laptops for a long time. I realize that laptops and notebooks right now are having some pressures, but at the end of the day, people are going to use those products. I think about them getting rid of their investments in Carrier air conditioning. You would think that people are going to be using air conditioning the rest of our lives. I think about them getting rid of the chip business. And now that's all anybody can talk about is chips. Here's the issue. I believe because they're so indecisive in what they're doing, they haven't clearly defined what they want to be, they're making decisions that aren't in the best interest of that company. And right now, what that company needs, it needs a whole new board, it needs all new leadership, and it damn sure needs some new ownership. And JIP Consortium needs to get this deal done before there's nothing left to do. So now let's start talking about some numbers. Toshiba, as a conglomerate, top-line revenue for the first 9 months of FY ending March of 2023 are $17.7 billion. Their operating profit is $60.5 million. You might as well say, with a rounding error, it's pretty much flat negative. It's not anything to write home about. It's not that exciting. Let's see what else is going on there at the conglomerate. Toshiba, the conglomerate, which owns the majority percentage of Toshiba Tec. And we know Toshiba Tec, that's where my friends care about, right? Those people that sell supply and service print equipment. Toshiba Tec is the one that has the print equipment, right? Well, Toshiba conglomerate owns the majority percentage of that company. Just by a little bit, but they still have the majority of it. But they've had $154.6 million impairment charges against it. Folks, I don't think the Toshiba conglomerate has any faith whatsoever in Toshiba Tec. They're not going to put any money in Toshiba Tec. And at the end of the day, Toshiba Tec has got to get away from this conglomerate. And if JIP Consortium is, in fact, the buyer of that company, they will, in fact, shed their interest in Toshiba Tec. We know it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. And Toshiba Tec, I got a solution for you. So stick with me in today's episode. Let's talk about how Toshiba conglomerate recognized the revenue from Toshiba Tec for the 9 months in. For the 9 months in, they're $2.8 billion top-line revenue with an operating profit loss of $62.6 million, most of that based on those impairment charges we just saw. Let's see how Toshiba Tec recognizes their revenue. $2.8 billion top-line revenue with an operating profit of $88 million, 3.2%. Congratulations, Toshiba Tec. I got to tell you something. When you go back in time and you look at Toshiba Tec, they do create more operating profit than a couple other players out in our space. And we could probably guess who those other players are. So Toshiba Tec, learn from that. Make sure you stick with what your core deliverables are. Don't try to do things that you're not supposed to be doing. And we all know that the print business is definitely under some pressure. And I'm going to share my thoughts on that with this next slide. So here's the breakout of the two groups in Toshiba Tec. We have the Workplace Solutions Business Group, and that's where the MFPs, all the print stuff lives. Total revenue for the 9 months is $1.2 billion with an operating profit of $42.5 billion. If you look at that Retail Business Solutions Group, and that's the one that excites me. That's where they got the smart shopping carts. They got those cashier registers that don't take a cashier. And it's just, there's a lot of retail technology for our ever-changing world. That all makes sense. I love that business that Toshiba Tec has there. That business, $1.7 billion top-line revenue with an operating profit of $46.2 million. I want to talk about this print business a little bit because I believe that the retail business for Toshiba Tec is a viable business. It's got a great future. I believe the print business that Toshiba Tec has needs to go away. It needs to go away, but I think Toshiba Tec could orchestrate the way it goes away. But look at some of the math on this. If you look at that Workplace Solutions business group where that print stuff lives, and you go into the domestic market of Japan, $85.8 million is the revenue that they get out of Japan. Out of $1.2 billion, they're getting $85.8 million in their domestic market. The people in Japan do not recognize Toshiba as some big print company, and if they do, they're not buying from them. Let's look at that retail business part of the business. What are they doing in their domestic market with that? $853.1 million in the domestic market. 10 times the revenue. So the people in Japan, they love that retail business. Let's look in the Americas. What's that print business doing in the Americas? $507.2 million. 9 months in. What's that going to end up for the end of the year? $650 million? It's just not enough money. If I asked everybody watching this, do you really believe that Toshiba Tec can double the revenue in the print business? Most people would say, well, hell no. What are they going to do? Take a business from somebody else? I mean, there's no way they're going to double the revenue. If I asked everybody watching this today, do you think Toshiba could double the revenue in the retail business? Absolutely yes. Why would you think that? It's products around the future. It's cool stuff. It's not print. In that retail space, they have some competition, but it's not nearly as oversaturated as the print business is. So Toshiba Tec is a company. If they had to do something drastic, get rid of the print and keep the retail, right? Get rid of the print and keep the retail. Let's talk about that a little bit. I wanted to compare them to Ricoh. The whole company, Toshiba Tec to Ricoh. And I wanted to look at Ricoh's digital services business. Ricoh's digital services business for the 9 months in did a total of $9.1 billion. The operating profit on that group was 1.5%, $135.4 million. 1.5% operating profit, which is way too low. And when I did the episode on Ricoh, I shared my thoughts on that. But when we look at Toshiba Tec, not only do they get double the operating profit, I believe Toshiba Tec as a whole has a better leadership and management team. And the only reason I'm saying that is if you base it on operating profit. If you go back and you look at Ricoh's percentages of operating profit and compare those to the percentage of operating profit at Toshiba Tec, if you had to invest in one of those two groups, I think most investors would want to probably be with Toshiba Tec if they really thought about it that way. A while back, I did an episode and I said Ricoh should buy up Toshiba Tec. I still think that Toshiba Tec and Ricoh coming together makes some sense. They could obviously just wipe out the print piece, just absorb it into the Ricoh print, and then they could help grow that retail business. They could probably do really well with that. They're a global company. They are in the digital services space. But here's the problem. If that were to happen, and I think that would be a good thing to happen, you'd have to let the Toshiba Tec people run the new company. I wouldn't suggest you let the Ricoh people run that. Because the Ricoh people that are currently running it have a really problem getting operating profit with any kind of consistency. And maybe Toshiba Tec has more discipline to do it. Just because one company's bigger doesn't mean they have better leaders. And I want everybody to pay attention to that. Just because one company's bigger doesn't mean the leaders are better than a company that they might get together with that's smaller. And I think the whole industry needs to think about what I just said. Because for way too long, we saw some of these big folks and we thought to ourselves, oh, they got to be doing a lot of things right. Look how big they are. But then when you peel the onion back, you start realizing, yeah, they might be big, but you could be dysfunctional and be big. I've been joking about this off and on. I'm going to say it again. Ricoh told the whole world that they wanted to really double down in this digital services space, and services were going to be a lot more important to their top line and their profit over what print was. And then because they're indecisive, they went around and told everybody that, oh, that's not really what we meant. We're still going to sell printers. And now they're out there telling dealers, as they have their meetings with the dealers, because we're all able to get together now, how important services are. They are too wishy-washy. And because they're so wishy-washy, that's probably why they're running around with a 1.5% operating profit on their so-called services business. And you would think that your services business would be more profitable. So I got to tell you, I truly believe that Toshiba Tec needs to do something. There's no doubt about it. But here's what I suggest. Toshiba Tec, I suggest you go find some private equity. And you get with that private equity, and then you go to Toshiba Conglomerate and say, we want to leave you. Here's a check. Do it. You should take control of your own destiny. Don't wait for JIP Consortium to buy that conglomerate, because they are going to buy them. And when they buy them, they're going to get rid of you, Toshiba Tec. They're going to get rid of you. And it's up to you to control where you go. And right now, the best solution I could think of for Toshiba Tec is this: to go find some private equity, write a check to the conglomerate, go out there on your own, and then figure out who you want to invest in. But you're going to have to come to the realization that for Toshiba Tec to really thrive in that retail business space, which I truly believe they can thrive, and they could turn that into a $4 or $5 billion business on its own, they have to get rid of print. They have to get rid of the print business. It's too small and it has no future. You're not going to grow that print business to $4 or $5 billion. But you could grow that retail business to $4 or $5 billion. And along the path to growing that retail business, you'll figure out what other things you can do that have great synergies with it. But Toshiba Tec, whatever you do, print's leaving. Whether you get with private equity and do it on your own terms, or whether JIP Consortium goes ahead and buys that conglomerate and liquidates you on their own, whoever the new buyer is, isn't going to keep the print piece. And everybody watching me knows this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.